Moving on to the third quarter, Arkansas next week travels to Dallas to take on Texas A&M in the Dallas Cowboys' new stadium. It's the inaugural Southwest Classic. That'll be at 6:45 on ESPN2. Texas A&M is a team that's undefeated so far. They have a big quarterback, Jared Johnson, who's looked really good for them so far. Harold, what are you looking for in that game?
I'm just looking for a consistent team effort, especially from the defense. It seems like it's been a trend where they put a good first half together, and they put another good first half together in this first game, by allowing just 14 points in the first half. But I just want to see a constant rush from that front four, and I want to see a little more consistency out of that secondary. Seems like they need to just shore up things and be confident and go out there and show what they can do.
And Matt, the Texas A&M defense is certainly not going to be mistaken for Alabama's defense. Do you think that Arkansas maybe gets back into its rhythm, gets back in sync a little bit this week?
I think they put together some big plays. I think Ryan Mallett will be more comfortable now that Alabama and Nick Saban's defensive genius are in the past. Once they start getting things together, I think they'll get on a roll a little bit better. The main thing we want to see this week, no matter how they play, is a win. Even though there are a lot of positives they got to take away from the Georgia game offensively, they did some good things against Alabama despite the big loss on the scoreboard. You want to see them win against A&M because they've got Auburn, who's been looking good, and then Florida and Ole Miss, who just lost, but those are top 25 teams coming up next.
Yeah, and this game being played in Northeast Texas, obviously a big recruiting ground for Arkansas. Harold, I know you've been looking at this a little bit lately, but how big is this game, like impactful-wise, on recruiting?
It's going to be a pretty big game for the Arkansas program. They're definitely looking at a lot of Texas recruits, as always, and it's just going to be a big game. It's a huge selling point for people when you get in the homes of people, and you're able to look at moms and grandmas and say you're going to be able to see your son play in this stadium. And it really is it's a really nice stadium, and it's going to be something for these Arkansas players to play in this NFL stadium, and especially if they get a win on ESPN2, they can definitely big win on network TV.
Jerry Jones was in Northwest Arkansas last week, and he's obviously really excited. I mean, he managed to get his alma mater to come play in his backyard in Dallas every year for the next 10 years. He says that if the Dallas Cowboys could claim all the players in North Texas for their team and no one else, that they would win the Super Bowl every year. I don't know about that. They might make the playoffs every year, but then we know that for the Cowboys sometimes it goes downhill from there. But it's definitely a big spotlight.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the fourth quarter of our show. And each week in the print edition, Wednesday's print edition of the Arkansas Traveler, we have a section, the SEC Power Rankings, that we as a staff tend to argue about maybe a little bit on Tuesdays when we're staying there till 9 o'clock to make the print edition happen. I know last week we had Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Ole Miss 1, 2, 3. Obviously, Ole Miss losing. Harold, what are you seeing this week as far as big movers up and down in the power rankings?
Ole Miss is obviously going to be going down. Probably look LSU, although they didn't look as sharp against Mississippi State. That's a pretty solid program. They've been moving up on our rankings. We've been noticing that offense that they've been putting together. Another team that's pretty interesting to me is Auburn. It just seems like they keep getting things done week after week. They beat Ball State by a pretty good margin, but looks like I'm going to be campaigning for Auburn to get up a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that we tend to disagree about. Matt, I mean, obviously Florida with Tim Tebow, do you still think that, I mean, with him coming back, their big game is obviously in 2 weeks. They have a bye week this week, but in 2 weeks they go down to Baton Rouge, play LSU. How big of a game will that be for the Gators as far as national championship implications and also in the SEC?
That's obviously one of the tougher tests they're going to face. Tim Tebow now has after suffering a concussion against Kentucky, big defensive lineman landed right on top of him. And one of his own guys hit him in the back of the head, so he'll have some time to recover. I'm sure he'll be fine. You know, he is superhuman after all. But that's a game they're going to want to win. I don't think they're going to overlook LSU by any means. Florida, the one thing you can give them in the last couple of years, the runs they've been making, they always seem to show up ready to play. Even in that Ole Miss loss last year, I don't think they're ever taken by surprise.
Okay. Last week I know we had Arkansas ranked number 8, but I mean, where do you honestly put them after a game like Saturday's? And obviously it was against Alabama, but where do you put them? I mean, at this point I would put Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. I mean, Mississippi State almost beat LSU. They were like inches away from beating LSU. I mean, where does Arkansas figure in the SEC at this point?
Definitely, it just seems like this team is just a little inconsistent. So you have to put those teams that are getting those results above them. And I don't know about Mississippi State yet. I like that offense that they're running there, but I don't know if they can do that week in, week out. It just seemed like it was a pretty wet environment down there, from what I recall. So maybe that the weather had a result there.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State did play pretty well, and obviously they played well, put together some consistent efforts like you talked about. Arkansas obviously has the potential. It's there. We've seen Ryan Mallett's big arm. It's a question whether the defense turns around, whether the offensive line can hold it together for 4 quarters against an SEC opponent. But for right now, they haven't really proven anything.
Yeah. All right, that'll wrap up the first edition of the Traveler Sports Podcast. Tune in each Monday morning for the latest news and in-depth analysis of everything Arkansas sports. Thanks for listening, and be sure to catch the breakdown of next week's Texas A&M game on UATrav.com and in Wednesday's edition of the Arkansas Traveler found across campus. Once again, I'm Jimmy Carter. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.